So how many of these do you remember? Unfortunately for me, or fortunately, I remember most of them. So I probably had most of them. So today we're going to have a look at some of these retro phones. It's a little look through time, really, and how mobile phones have developed. So some of these are in better condition than others. Some of you that are watching this that are 30 plus will probably remember having these and how different mobile phones were. So starting from this side, we've got the compact IPAC. This has definitely got a special place in my heart. So when I was 16, I had a moped, as a lot of us did back then. So this is now 17 years ago. It's over half my life ago. And I used to use this really as a kind of type of iPod. So this here used to run the Windows operating system, but it had a stylus in it. So you could pop the stylus out. It had a massive 512 megabit or megabyte card. This has now got a whopping 2 gig in it. But it's a touchscreen computer. So you could tap the screen, you had to align it every time. So you had to tap little things on here. But it basically ran a full version of Windows. So it had a start menu, had all kinds of stuff, which was actually really, really cool. This case that it's in is a GPS case. So this is what you needed to add GPS to it. So this was called the Copilot GPS jacket. But this was pioneering, really. Before this, it was the Siren organizer, which was black and white. Not very good, so this was a massive game changer. So yeah, on here you could get email, which was in its infancy at the time. It had Bluetooth on it, which was brand new. Before that, everyone had used infrared. So yeah, this was really, really, I'd say, pioneering. So yeah, moving across from that, we've got the Nokia 500. This is far more modern than the other ones, but what was relevant to this, it was one of the first ones that you could change the cases on. So in this box, it's got a couple of additional cases. So depending on your mood, change the back. You could change it to turquoise if you wanted, or you could just keep it how it is. Coming across here, Nokia 3310. So I was 12 when these came out. I remember that really, really well. That was the advanced version of the Nokia 3210, which people will probably remember for Snake. This was the first one that had Snake 2. So like I say, that was quite a big improvement, especially as Snake was such a big thing for Nokia. It was absolutely massive. Then we've got these ones. So what you used to find is that you had different model numbers for different network operators. So this is a 6230i if you were with Orange. You used to have different names. So for example, this is a Vodafone one, which had a different model number. And yeah, it was strange that they used to do that. So for example, the Nokia 402. So this is what people would know as a Nokia 5110. But it was also known as a Nokia 402 if you were on Orange. So I don't really know why they did that, but yeah, it's quite interesting. K750i, so this is one of the first ones that really introduced the camera to the market. I was 18 when these came out. It was my first ever contract phone. But this was kind of bridging the gap between camera and music. So this is when you started having smart tech in your pocket all the time. And then slightly later than that, the Nokia N95. So again, I've got 2 of these. One of them is still brand new in the box. And this was quite an interesting one. So it moved up, obviously you had your keypad here, so had all your buttons on here, but it also moved down. So here you have music controls. So again, trying to incorporate music into phones was a big thing. This was a few years later than the first 3G phones, but when 3, the mobile network, first came out, their big thing was video calling. So this is when phones started moving away from just being phones, really. So yeah, like I say, it was interesting times. Moving on from here and going back in time slightly further, we've got the Motorola MicroTac. So this was a brick of a phone, really. I actually remember you used to get these in Argos on a contract for £4.95. So you had to have a contract. Of course, a big pull-out aerial, as a lot of phones had back then, and an absolutely massive battery and a huge SIM card in it. The next one after that came out was the legendary Startac, the first ever flip phone. So yeah, again, this was a game changer. This came out in '96, so I was 8 or 9 when this came out. And the big thing to have was the slimline battery. So this is when mobile phones still had removable batteries. You used to take a massive credit card sized SIM card. You used to go in here. Interestingly, you could receive texts on that, but not send them. So it kind of worked as a pager, which was interesting. So moving on, Nokia 503, probably more commonly known as the 7110. So again, late 90s phone. This one all works, quite interesting. Famously used in the Matrix, although the Matrix had a modified version. So it's known as the banana phone, obviously because it's shaped like a banana. You could open it up, so it had a slide down, and it also had a detector to see if it was slid down or not. in the Matrix, they modified this phone so it's spring-loaded. So they'd answer the phone, spring-loaded, it would open up. That never happened on the phone, although the next one on from this, so the more updated version, was spring-loaded and had a wheel on the front as well. So yeah, they obviously took that from the Matrix. It's quite interesting. Got a couple of them. Moving on now, we've got iPhones. So first generation iPhone. The actual first iPhone that came out was the iPhone 2G. This one here is a 3GS. So we can see here that we've got the 3G and the S on the side of the box. This was the game changer, really. So Apple had already come out with the iPod, sorry, for music. And this really was in kind of the same form as an iPod. We can see it's got the old style connector, separate headphone jack, and a camera on the back, tiny little camera, which wasn't really up to much. But this was the first real age of iPod meets iPhone, and it was definitely a game changer, 100%. If we look at how that changed between that and then the 4, and how it moved on, totally different. And if we compare that to the iPhones that we've got now, even more different still. So this was the first one that had the fingerprint scanner on it. This one you had to put in a manual code, and yeah, they're becoming rarer and rarer now. So you're seeing less and less of these about, especially less and less of these that are working. I'm quite lucky really to have some of these in good condition, because they were used every day, so not many of them survived, to be honest. But it's just really interesting to me, looking back on how mobile phones were. You wouldn't get a mobile phone without a contract, it was so expensive. A lot of these came out before pay-as-you-go, so before there was any such thing as top-up or credit or anything like that. So you really had to have a contract. In fact, I remember having one of the micro tax on 1-to-1, so 1-to-1 got taken over by O2, but they actually offered to buy the contract back because it was sold on an unlimited minute contract, so there was no data then, so there was never any data, although these early phones had what was called WAP. So some of these phones like the 3210, 3310 would have had WAP on it. It's not comparable to data or the internet now, but that's what they had. And 1-to-1 was so worried that they'd kind of oversold, undersold, but overstated the contract. So they were providing unlimited minutes and text for like £55 a month, which is a huge amount of money then. They actually offered to buy people out of the contract. So they offered like £2,500 to buy out of the contract. Contracts then got scaled back. So you then get 200 minutes free per month, and then you'd have to pay for additional minutes or anything like that, which is crazy to think that now you can get pay-as-you-go things on networks like giffgaff or O2 or whatever for £20 a month, and it's unlimited everything. So it just goes to show really how things have changed. These would have been on very old network protocols, then moving up to 2G, 3G, 4G. People think that's to do with the number of gigahertz that the cell network works at. It's not at all. So second generation 2G was obviously the second generation, 3G was the third generation, 4G the fourth, now 5G the fifth. So yeah, seeing how these have come on is unbelievable really, and also most of them will still work. But yeah, an interesting look back through time. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm also going to do another one on retro gaming consoles, so things like the Amiga, the Master System. Link will be in the description and also on this video. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, check out my next one. And as always, I'm always happy to answer any questions.